How are you today? I'm Melissa, and this is Hang In There. I'm really glad you're here. This episode is part of a series, and today, this one is for my parents. For the people who loved me through something they couldn't fully see, who stayed available to me even when they didn't know what to say or how to help. If you've ever watched someone you love slowly disappear inside a relationship, or if you've ever been the one disappearing, if you've ever had to stay quiet to keep the peace, or watch the people you love stay quiet too, this one might feel familiar. You can listen at your own pace. If it feels okay, take one slow breath with me. Let's begin. I wonder what you saw from where you were. I wonder how much you understood. I wonder if I did a good enough job protecting you from all of it. I never wanted you to carry it too. But I also didn't know how to tell you what was happening. I remember coming to your house that day, walking into that small entryway, slowly, physically and emotionally exhausted, carrying bags, holding on to dogs, trying to hold on to the kids, trying to hold on to myself. We had left, and you told us to come and stay with you. The kids and I were wide-eyed, scared. They were just little. I can still see it. The kids behind me in that moment, holding their things. That's what keeps hitting me now. They just followed me, trusting me completely. Trusted that I knew where we were going. Trusted that I knew how to keep us safe. How horrifying that must have felt for them. More than anything, I wanted them to feel safe. But they'd been through this before, twice, and now we were at your house. Because at that point, it was the only place I knew to go. I remember the dogs had so much energy and I felt bad, like we had arrived carrying chaos into your home. I unpacked the kids first, into the extra bedroom. I put on a movie for them. They were quiet. Everyone was. But it was calm. And that felt very unfamiliar. It was something wonderful to feel in that moment, though. No expectations waiting for me there. No pressure. No performance. Just space for us to exist. You both left us alone to settle in. Nothing much was said. Looking back now, I think that was our family's way of loving each other through hard things. We weren't always people who talked openly about painful emotions. And still, you made room for us anyway. After I put the kids to bed, I remember making my way downstairs. I was numb. I was overwhelmed and afraid. But underneath all of that, I was embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed of my children or of needing help. I was embarrassed that my life had become something I never imagined it would be. Embarrassed that I had shown up at your house carrying bags and scared children after being so sure I had chosen the right person. So sure I had built the right life. I remember feeling like I had disrupted your whole world. Embarrassed that this was now affecting all of you too. And I think I just felt ashamed that I couldn't fix it. I just wanted someone to magically come up with a plan that would change the outcome of my situation. Someone to just wave a magic wand and finally have an answer that could keep us safe. But deep down, I already knew staying with you wouldn't be sustainable. In the back of my mind, I kept replaying everything I had heard over and over again. That he would take me to court, and that he would win. that he had a good job. The money, the stability. I didn't even have my own bank account. And one of the things that terrified me most was hearing that I was alienating the children, and that he could take them away from me because of it. I was terrified. But I also couldn't take it anymore. So I had to try to leave, even just for a little while. I think a part of me was still hoping someone, somewhere, would finally have an answer. Some kind of protection. Maybe eventually someone would. I remember sitting downstairs with you both while the bridges of Madison County played quietly on the TV. We didn't speak, just watched. I'd never seen it before. I don't even fully remember the movie now. But I remember feeling something so strongly and suddenly saying out loud, I feel just like her. And then I cried. Openly, fully. Maybe for the first time in front of you about any of it. Looking back now, I think something in me recognized her before I understood myself. A woman disappearing quietly inside her own life. Lonely, trapped, trying to hold everything together. Back then, I didn't have the language for coercive control. I just knew something inside me hurt when I watched her. I didn't have the words to explain what I was feeling or what I'd been living through. I had left twice before, but this was the first time we had come to your house to stay. And I think something about that made it feel more real. I was so confused. I was young. No one had ever told me relationships could become like this. Quietly controlling. Confusing. Fearful. Back then, I thought abuse had to be something you could point to easily. I didn't know how to explain the kind that slowly makes you disappear instead. And honestly, I couldn't make any sense of it. I just knew it was wrong. I knew it wasn't acceptable. That I didn't want to live that way anymore. That the kids and I deserved better than that. And now, looking back, I find myself wondering what you were thinking during all of it. Were you afraid that if you said too much, I might pull further away? Because you had already seen what happened after I went back the last time someone close to me gave us a place to stay. Did you feel helpless? Watching me try to survive something you couldn't fully fix, while having no control over what I would do next? Just loving me through it the best you could? What you couldn't fully see then was how trapped I already felt. I knew what the laws were. I knew how hard it would be to leave safely. I knew I couldn't just keep the kids from seeing him because we were afraid. I knew fighting for protection would cost money I didn't have. Money none of us really had. And still, part of me kept hoping maybe this time something would change. Maybe someone would finally help us. I called lawyers. I called the county. I kept searching for someone to tell me there was a way. But nothing changed. And eventually, I knew I had to go back. Or at least try to make things work as best I could. I was so ashamed because deep down, I knew better. I knew what I was walking back into. And at the time, I viewed that as weakness. Which is hard for me to admit now, because underneath all of it, I was a strong person. But coercive control has a way of making survival feel like failure. I hated that I had to do it. That I had to pretend I wanted to go back. Pretend I believed his promises. the ones I already knew he wouldn't keep. And honestly, I think part of what hurt so much was knowing he would probably see my return as proof that he'd fooled me. Again. When deep down I already knew nothing was going to change. I don't remember much about going back that time. I just know that I did. And I remember feeling terrible about myself for it. Part of me hoped things might calm down for a while. Maybe become manageable somehow. But I also knew what would be expected of me when I got back. And I dreaded it. I dreaded it with everything in me. Because by then, something inside me had already changed. I didn't want to be his wife anymore. I didn't want to keep shrinking myself just to survive inside that relationship. I wanted more. I knew I deserved more than that. That the kids and I deserved better than that. And you both, you stayed available to me, even from a distance. And I knew that, even while I was pulling away from almost everyone. I don't really remember going back the second time I stayed with you either. I just remember that I did. And I imagine part of you probably expected that by then. I don't blame you for that. I can only imagine how painful and frustrating it must have been to watch me keep returning to something that was hurting me. But I want you to know, I did see it. I knew things were wrong. You raised me to be strong, confident. You raised me to value kindness, respect, and to believe that love was supposed to feel safe. And I think that's part of why staying eventually became impossible for me. Because underneath all the fear and the confusion, I knew this wasn't how love was supposed to feel. But in the meantime, I pulled away, treading carefully so I didn't lose my relationship with you entirely. I remember the phone call when you were upset about us missing another holiday. How hurt you were that we weren't coming. Again. You told me someday I would understand when I got older. But I did understand. I just couldn't say anything. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I never wanted to. I was trying to survive, trying to keep things calm enough, safe enough to get through the day. But I heard your hurt, and it broke my heart. I remember trying to make excuses so it would hurt you less. I'm not even sure if those excuses were more for you or for me. And over time, missing holidays, birthday parties, family gatherings, it all slowly became normal. No one really asked where I was anymore or where the kids were. And I think everyone was hurting in different ways. Confused, sad, maybe angry sometimes too. And I understand why. I really do. Because what's a family supposed to do in situations like that? How do you help someone you love when there doesn't seem to be a safe answer? I think coercive control created a double bind for all of us. I was trying to survive inside it, and you were trying to figure out how to help me without losing me in the process. Maybe you stayed quiet sometimes because you were afraid intervening would make things worse. But staying quiet came with its own pain, too. Maybe you were afraid I would disappear entirely. The hardest part is I wanted to be there. At the holidays, the birthday parties, the family gatherings. I wanted the kids to grow up surrounded by all of you. But leaving wasn't as simple as you think. There were custody fears, financial fears, legal fears, and I felt trapped inside all of it. So while our family was going through hard things together, I was sitting at home alone, just trying to keep my own head above water, trying to keep going, trying to give the kids some kind of childhood in the middle of it all. I do remember keeping our calls on Tuesdays during the day when I was alone. Back then, it was easier when the phone was still a landline and the bill didn't show every number I called. But I did call you. And we would check in. We rarely talked openly about anything bad. Instead, I would try to ease your mind. Tell you things seemed better. That maybe I'd finally gotten through to him. Maybe things were changing. I didn't want you to worry about me all the time. But I think you always knew when things were really bad, because that's when I would disappear again. I would stop calling, sometimes for months. But even then, you both stayed available to me. Careful, from a distance. Not judging me necessarily. Held back in ways I didn't fully understand at the time. Maybe you were afraid saying something negative about him would get back to him somehow, and you'd lose your relationship with us entirely. Is that what you were afraid of? Because looking back now, I think everyone was trying to survive him in different ways. And you kept trying. Even when I missed the holidays. Even when I went back again and again. You helped pay for lawyers who ultimately couldn't help me. And I could never pay you back for that. And then I went back anyway. And I remember feeling so ashamed. Like I had failed all over again. Like maybe you would think I'd taken advantage of your help somehow. Or that I was ungrateful. I was trying with everything in me to leave safely with the kids. And back then it felt impossible. I didn't know what else to do. But you never made me feel like a burden for needing help more than once. Thank you for helping me. And even then, you stayed available. And after so many years of clawing my way towards some kind of independence, getting an education, trying to build a life where my kids and I could finally feel safe, where I didn't have to live with the same fears around the courts anymore, it finally happened. For the first time, I felt like I might actually be able to stand on my own. And deep down, I think I knew this time was different. But you didn't. And I don't know how you were supposed to trust me after everything, after all the times I'd gone back before, after all the years of trying. But you did. I remember the day I looked at my townhouse after staying at Graham's for a week. And for the first time in a very long time, something inside me finally felt hopeful again. I had worked so hard to get there. I had a job, my own bank account. Enough stability to finally start imagining a life that felt like my own. The kids were older then, and for the first time, I didn't feel trapped by the same custody fears anymore. Everything just felt different that time. Like maybe I could finally do it. Like maybe we were finally going to make it out. You helped me with the down payment for that townhome. And now I wonder if part of you was scared to trust it fully. If maybe part of you worried I would go back again, even then. And I would have understood that. But you gave me something so important that day. You trusted me. That this time I was really ready. And you didn't lecture me. You didn't shame me. You didn't tell me what I should have done differently. You just trusted me. No expectations. Just love. That townhome was the beginning of everything that came after. The beginning of the life I have now. A safe life. A peaceful life. A life where the kids and I can finally breathe. And I know none of it would have happened the way it did without the way you loved me through all of it. Even when it was messy. Even when it was frustrating. Even when you were afraid. Thank you. We lost Dad not long after I finally got on my feet. But I know he was proud of me. I know he saw how hard I'd fought to get there. And I'll never forget hearing his voice in the background the day you told me you would help me with the townhome. It's only money. I'll never forget those words. He didn't say it was okay. He didn't say he understood. He just said, it's only money. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't carrying all of it alone anymore. He's gone now, but I don't think I'll ever stop hearing his voice say that. Mom, you're still here. And I want you to know I see it now. All of it. The fear, the waiting, the not knowing what to say, everything it cost you to love me through all of that. And still loving me anyway. Thank you, both of you, for never leaving me alone. Before we go any further, let's slow things down for a moment. If you're listening right now, thinking about your own family, or the people who tried to love you through something painful, and you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't have to hold all of that alone. There are millions of us in this world who understand. Maybe you're thinking about someone who stayed. Maybe you're thinking about someone who couldn't. Maybe you're thinking about a family that didn't show up the way you needed. Or one that made things harder instead of easier. Maybe you're thinking about yourself. About the things you carried quietly. The explanations you made up. The feelings you buried just to get through the day. The times you keep going when no one fully understands how hard it is. All of that is welcome here. You've opened so many doors in the dark, not knowing what was waiting. And you're still here. Hold that for a moment. And if it feels okay, take one slow breath with me. Coercive control doesn't just affect the person living inside the relationship. It spreads outward, quietly, strategically, into families, into holidays, into phone calls, into silence, into the way entire support systems begin adapting around fear. Sometimes people pull away because they're ashamed. Sometimes families go quiet because they're afraid the wrong word might make someone disappear completely. And sometimes families weren't there at all. Sometimes they chose silence for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they chose the person who hurt you. That doesn't mean you deserved that. That was never about your worth. Coercive control isolates survivors from support on purpose. Sometimes it works. And the people who should have shown up simply didn't. For those who did show up, it often came with its own kind of fear. Everyone starts managing carefully, choosing words carefully, avoiding conflict carefully, trying not to make things worse. That doesn't mean people stopped loving each other. Most of the time it means they were terrified of losing each other. Fear is powerful. And it presents itself in ways that can look like something else entirely. Silence, distance, carefulness. And abusers often know how to twist those reactions into something that benefits them. Survivors carry shame for pulling away. Families carry guilt for not knowing how to help. Coercive control creates this confusion on purpose. Not just for the survivor, but for everyone who loves them too. And I think about what it actually cost you, both of you, just to stay close to us. You had to smile around him, talk normally with him, act as if you respected someone you knew was hurting us, someone the kids and I had fled from more than once. You acted okay around him, just like we had learned to do. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. To hide your real feelings in order to protect your relationship with me? To protect your connection to the kids? To keep the peace long enough to stay close to us? At the time, I think part of me interpreted that as approval. Like maybe you were okay with what was happening. But now I understand something I couldn't see then. You weren't silent because you approved. You were silent because you loved me. And you were afraid. Afraid that if you pushed too hard, I would disappear. And honestly, I think I might have. You let me come back without making me earn it. Even after I pulled away. Even after I went back. Even after the missed holidays, the silence, the confusion, you kept the door open for me. We've had to rebuild a lot over the years. And I think in some ways we probably still are. You don't walk out of something like that and immediately know how to be a family again. But I understand so much more now than I did back then. I see the fear, the helplessness, the carefulness, all the ways you were trying to hold on to me without making things worse. And underneath all of it, I see love. Thank you for never letting go of me. As we come to a close, we can slow things down for a moment. If it helps, notice where your body is right now. Feel the surface supporting you. Nothing needs to be resolved or understood today. You can take what felt helpful and leave the rest here. You can come back to this whenever you're ready. You don't have to carry this alone. Neither do I. This is hang in there. Listen. Heal. Rise.